Okay. I have to get the music off. Okay. All right, everyone. Welcome to this month's live Q&A call for the Technical Experts Leadership Accelerator. I'm very excited to have everyone. And let's just go ahead and dive right in. So let me start by introducing my co-host. See if I can get you on here. Gallery view. Okay. Hi, Mom. How are you? Can you hear me?
I'm fine, thanks.
Okay.
This time I checked, yes. This time I checked for any Zoom updates before the actual Zoom meeting started. So
yeah. It's okay. It happened to every. It happens
on schedule now.
So, well, thank you for your card. So everyone, this marks 1 year of the membership. And so my mom sent this, she's very thoughtful. She sent me this card saying happy memberversary. So it says you stayed focused, took it one step at a time and made it happen. So proud of you. So thank you very much. And I am thrilled to have you as my co-host and partner with this little endeavor. So
oh, it's been my pleasure.
Yeah,
my pleasure. Absolutely.
It's maybe can go over just a couple of lessons learned. So first of all, if you're joining, the way these work, so we're just going to chat for a couple of minutes, and then I will go give you just a brief overview of what happened in the membership, what happened in the membership since last month, and then we can go into Q&A. And Q&A, as always, you can come off your mic and ask, or you can put your questions in the chat, in which case my mom will flag me and she will ask the question on your behalf. So that's just how these work. So anyway, I was just reflecting back. So let's see, when I first opened the membership, made tons of mistakes and wins and things, but the first thing I did was not turn the payment processor on. So I know the very first person who actually wanted to join and pay me to join, I couldn't take his credit card. So, but fortunately it was somebody that I knew, Petre, and he and I've known each other for a long time. So he was patient enough to try again so that he can join. So subsequently, there's been a couple of technical glitches. There've been some marketing glitches where, I thought I was going to get a bunch of people to join and that didn't happen. But I think overall, I've been pretty happy with how it worked, and I'm excited about just tomorrow. I'll be going to Georgia Tech to launch a group cohort. 38 women will be joining us from Georgia Tech, and so I'm really excited about that. And gosh, if you'd asked me a year ago if I'd have thought I'd be bringing kind of groups at a time, that was not even on my radar screen. So lots of things have changed, and so far so good. So I'm encouraged. So what about you? What do you think is, I'm putting you on the spot, so I apologize. But I'm just curious, like what's been the most surprising thing to you about, when I came to you and said, I'm going to join a member, I want to create a membership. Probably like, okay, first of all, what is that? And then
that was my first question. Yeah. What is a membership? And then when you explained it, I said, oh, that makes perfect sense, because you have so much to offer people, and now you can offer them all around the world. People can join from anywhere in the world that they want to join and become successful leaders. So
yeah.
So
I think it's, there's lots of different ways you can do talks, you can do online courses, you can do there's a bunch of different ways to do it. But I for me thought this made a lot of sense, because I've taken a lot of online courses, but I always had questions. And oftentimes when you just take an online course, like you can never actually speak to the author. So I thought, well, this at least gives people an opportunity to ask me questions, whether it be here, whether it be, through the survey, whether it be through private messaging. And I've been pleased that we've gotten interactions that way, along with feedback. So here's to another year. Let's see what we can do in year 2 of the membership. Okay.
I don't have any a champagne, but I'll got a cup of tea.
Okay,
I'll raise a
very
cup
good.
of tea to
Thank you.
another successful year
Thank
of
you
the
very much.
of the Leadership Accelerator.
Okay. Well, that was the other thing in our first call. My mom couldn't say Technical Experts Leadership Accelerator. If you want to go back to the very beginning, she was like, technical something. What is
It's something? It's
so
something. We're going to accelerate whatever it is.
It does not roll off the tongue. So like naming things is not, coming up with catchy names is by no means my forte. And maybe that'll be one of the first things I hire, is somebody who can do like legitimate branding and stuff like that. But we got it done anyway. So.
Got it. Yes.
So
we have it.
All right. I'll take you off camera because I know that's what you
Okay.
prefer. And I will pin myself. Okay. So what has gone on? Well, so let me just, one last thing. I do want to say that, so in honor of our memberversary, I would like to gift you all a time management journal. So that will be an electronic journal where it's got some self-reflection questions and some quotes and some tips all about time management. That's been one of the most frequently discussed topics that people ask me about, is how do I manage my time? How do I find more time, etc. So it is not up there right this second, but by the time this video gets posted to the membership, we will also have that journal posted for you as well. So I hope that you enjoy that. So in terms of new content or focused content, since the last time we got together, so one thing that I've done is I have updated my leadership success framework. There's a quiz inside of the membership that I recommend that you take when you first join. And many of you have taken that, and that kind of helps you navigate the content a little bit, helps you prioritize. I've updated that just based on a year's worth of talking to clients and talking to people like you. And I have not updated the online portion yet, but I am now offering that. I do like 5 or 6 a month, just sort of the general public. I offer that as a short 25-minute meeting where you join with me and I go through the questions, and then I give you some feedback on your leadership strengths. So just wanted to make sure you all knew that was available, and we will put the link to the calendar where you can schedule that with me. We'll put that link in the show notes for today. So that's something that's fairly new. One piece of content that's been in there for a while, but I chose to spotlight it in our weekly update, is networking inside your organization. So this comes up a lot when you are either looking to grow into the next role, or you have just taken on a new role, whether it be a promotion or a lateral move. You need to renegotiate your network. You need to reach back out to the people that have known you in the past, people that have already been in your network, potentially identify new people based on your new context, your new status, your new responsibilities, and you need to reach out to people inside your own organization and just reestablish a network. Just say, hey, just wanted to let you know, I just got this new role. Here's what I think this means to me right now based on what I know. And from your vantage point, based on where you sit in the company, what are some things that, you think would be good for me to know? Who are some people you think it would be good for me to meet? And do you have any other, recommendations or suggestions for me? It is critical that you do that. One, because oftentimes people aren't going to know that you got this new role. I shouldn't say nobody. Most people don't read company announcements, don't read these kind of press releases, even though you all should, because I've been telling you to do this all the time. It's one of my major pieces of advice, is to actually be reading all the stuff that comes from leadership. But a lot of people don't. And so don't assume that people know. One, that you're even, if you're new to a company, that you're there. And if you got a new role, that people saw that. And then if they did see it, don't assume they understood what it meant. So, the way people describes roles and responsibilities and new things on these kind of, job announcements, it's not really very clear sometimes. And so by you making the effort to extend yourself, first of all, to make that initial contact is a great sign. It lets people know, oh, okay, they're open, they want to reach out, they want to collaborate. That's the first thing. So that's a great leadership signal that you're giving to all of these people throughout your organization. And then you're going to give them a little bit of information, which people love. People love more information. Hey, I got this new role. Here's what it means to me. And then you're asking for input. You are showing that you are open to feedback, open to input, open to suggestions by saying, hey, based on where you sit, what would you who would you recommend I talk to? What do you recommend that I, be aware of, etc. Those are all excellent leadership signals to send to people who may or may not know you very well. It's also going to help you really build your coalition of support. And then it's also going to help you really make better decisions about how to do your work and use your resources, whether those resources be team members or budget, because you're going to get broader information about what's really going on. So you're not going to be stuck in this little silo, only seeing things from your vantage point. You're going to have a broad range of people who are giving you inputs, and all of those things are extremely useful. So that quick win has got just, some tips on how to actually do that, who to think about, who you should be reaching out to, how to do that, and then maintain it on a consistent basis of actually, building relationships and networking inside your own organization. So those are the new things that I've added. I've been trying, I heard you all talk about there already being a lot of content, so I'm trying not to add tons of new stuff all the time. But I do want to make sure that you are aware of the stuff that's in there. So, that's what we've got on content. We've got the leadership strengths assessment. You can book a time with me, and I will honestly updating the survey online. It's probably going to happen next month. So if you want to wait, you can, but if you're really curious about sort of what your strengths are, then you can book some time with me. We've got the how to network inside your organization, and then the time management journal, which is the gift for members for sticking with me for the first year. That will be uploaded here over the weekend. So that's where we are on content. Okay, so now I'm going to move into the Q&A portion. So let's see. For some reason, this month, I've gotten so many questions about public speaking and about, executive presence, public speaking, being nervous. So there are a lot of what I have here is kind of related to that. So just, I don't know why. I don't know if there's, I have no idea why September was the month that that everybody's doing public speaking, but apparently. Okay. I have to give a presentation to a group of women scientists, and it's the first time I have done public speaking that wasn't at a technical conference where I had my slides, as a crutch, basically. I'm feeling nervous. How can I prepare to do a good job? Okay. So, first of all, I'm going to read the answer because I actually typed out this answer and sent it to her right away. So I'm going to kind of read these talking points to you. There are really, what did I say? I had 5 things. So there's 5 things that I think can be helpful when it comes to public speaking. So first of all, it's important, and this will help alleviate your nerves a little bit. It will also help you project authenticity, project as a genuine person that people are interested in talking to. If you really think about why you want to give this presentation in the first place. So why is it important to you to give this talk at this event? And there is no right or wrong answer. I mean, maybe you really care about this particular organization. Maybe you really want to practice and get better at your public speaking. Maybe it's a specific topic that you feel passionate about. I mean, your why is unique and right for you, but I think it's really important to think about that and have that, write it down and really have that in your mind as you take the podium, because that will kind of ease some of your fears and help you instead of focusing on, okay, am I saying the exact right thing? Am I, how do I look and all that stuff? You can think about, oh, I'm actually, I really wanted to be here for insert your why. The second thing, and this is, before you take the stand, is really to mind map your talk. So mind mapping is just a technique where you kind of start with a key concept in the middle, and then you just free form, think about the different ideas, and they can take different branches, and you end up with, kind of this blob of text and things like that. But the thing that I want you to do, and the reason why I suggest mind mapping when it comes to giving a presentation, especially if you're used to giving technical presentations. So we're used to having a slide that's like introduction, and then approach, and then results, and then discussion. We're used to having a very kind of formulaic step-by-step presentation. That's the way our technical presentations tend to be when we're doing conferences and things like that. But if you're not doing that, if you're giving a different kind of talk, then the structure isn't always obvious, and mind mapping can help you put a structure in place. If you have your key concept sort of in the middle, then you can think about, okay, maybe there's a story that you want to tell related to that, and that could be a branch. Or maybe there's some data that you have that you can reference related to your topic. Maybe there's some quotes that you can have that are related to your topic. These are all branches that can come from that talk. And then when you kind of take a step back and look at it, you say, okay, I have some structure here. It's not the technical structure that we're used to, but there's another structure that I can kind of follow. And then as you are building your talk and you're starting to try to commit this to memory so you can get up and talk about it, it's much easier to sort of remember your outline and your key concepts than it is to try to memorize every single word that you're going to say. When you try to memorize every single word that you're going to say, you end up getting yourself stuck, because the second you say something that wasn't on your script, then you start focusing on that and you get hung up and you get nervous, and it just kind of goes downhill. But if you're like, okay, first thing I'm going to talk about, first I'm going to tell a story about my concept, then I'm going to talk about the data with my concept, and then I'm going to talk about, then you can sort of free form it a little bit in between those things and still get through the bulk of what you wanted to say. So I really think that mind mapping is a great exercise when it comes to giving presentations that don't fit inside our typical structure. I would also say pitch decks also typically have a pretty typical structure. So, I think you can, depending on whether or not you were given this specific structure for a pitch deck, and oftentimes if you're competing, like if you're doing a pitch competition, they kind of give you a template to follow, in which case obviously follow the template. But if you weren't given anything, then you might want to consider doing some mind mapping. So then the third thing is practice. So I strongly recommend that you videotape yourself practicing your presentation. So just open up your phone and or use a webcam if you want to, and which is what I use for these calls, and practice giving your presentation. And I know it can be really cringy to watch yourself, but honestly, this is what the professionals do. The professionals practice and practice some more, hundreds and thousands of times. And I'm not suggesting you do that, but I am suggesting that you practice a couple of times. And I do think it is worth recording yourself or having someone else, if you're comfortable to do it in front of somebody else, have somebody else give you some feedback. I will tell you, the first time I really had a good opportunity to do this was when I was preparing for my TED Talk. Now, of course, these people are, they're the people who organize the TED events are professionals. And so they had specific feedback, but it was really, really helpful for me to give my presentation and then, have them say, well, you were walking around a little too much, or I didn't really understand this point that you said, or your voice wavered here, there, and the other thing. So obviously these are more advanced techniques, and 99% of people can give a presentation beautifully and still like have a little bit of a shaky voice and, I don't know, pace, or as you can see, my hands move their hands around either too little or too much. But it's still helpful to get some feedback. And for sure, it's helpful to practice. You know, one of the things that I was actually surprised about when I was practicing for the TED Talk is that I actually needed to practice breathing, when to breathe. And they say, oh, this is very common. Many professional speakers will actually write in their talk, you know, if they have they're writing their talk and they're practicing, they'll actually write in when to take a breath. And I was like, really? I had no idea. Now, both of my kids play in the school band. And so now I understand that musicians do this too. Oftentimes when you read music, like you'll know when you're supposed to breathe, so that this, you know, it sounds good. But I had no idea that you could sort of program in breathing. And that was really helpful for me, because certainly I know for me, typically when I start a talk, I'm pretty nervous, and sometimes I can get, you know, that shows up for me as tightness of breath. So practice. Think about, you know, breathing, particularly if you have a long talk. I mean, if you're up there for 2 or 3 minutes, probably okay. TED Talks, I think, are 13 minutes. So yeah, I was definitely gonna need to take at least a couple of breaths in 13 minutes, or else it's gonna hit the red dot. Was just gonna be, I was gonna hit the red dot and go splat. Okay. And then when it comes to the content, memorizing the content. So as I said, I think that thinking about your concepts is most important, and kind of commit your concepts and the order of those concepts to memory. Then you can practice your delivery, but, you know, allow yourself some flexibility if you want to use some different words in the way you explain it. I think the more flexibility you can allow yourself, the easier it will be to deliver the presentation. Now, having said that, I personally really like to memorize the first 3 or 4 lines of any talk. Sort of like, okay, because then I can visualize myself. Okay, I'm going to walk up to the stage or to the podium, and I'm going to say whatever it is I'm going to say. And those first couple of lines, memorizing those really helps to calm my nerves. So that's a very uniquely to me, but you might give that a try to see if that's something that helps you, is actually memorizing the words of the first couple of lines. And then the last thing, you know, if you really think that you may be doing public speaking on a more regular basis, Toastmasters is the absolute best organization for that. That is its sole purpose. They have Toastmasters clubs all over the world. It's a very low cost. I mean, many companies will pay for that as a professional development expense. Heck, many big companies actually have their own Toastmasters clubs, and universities as well have their Toastmasters clubs embedded in their organization. And then if not most, you know, medium size and certainly large size cities will have a Toastmasters club. And I actually think that there are some virtual ones that, you know, when COVID hit, everybody went virtual. I think some of them still have a virtual component. So I highly recommend Toastmasters. Toastmasters, you know, they give you, you know, that you start really small. You start with, okay, you're going to talk for 90 seconds and prepare your talk, and then you deliver it. And then you get really good, solid feedback from very, you know, in the safest environment you could possibly, you know, be in. And then you get a bigger talk, and then you learn how to not only public speak, you know, at a podium, but you also learn how to comport yourself, you know, in like networking events, board meetings, like a lot of these kind of, as you get higher and higher in leadership, you find yourself in these, I would say, more formal situations where you've got to network and communicate with people. And even if it's, you know, even if it's not a talk, maybe maybe you're introducing someone at a big important meeting, or maybe maybe you even just have a question. Maybe you have like a complex question you want to ask at like a board meeting. Those are all the types of things that you can practice, and they'll teach you how to do in a Toastmasters group. And I was in Toastmasters, I think, for about 2 years when I first started at Alcoa. And then we moved, and I didn't rejoin. I couldn't find one, or just what I think I I was pregnant and I had other things on my mind. I had babies and things got away from me, but I really remember that. And then I sort of started taking on my own training. And just because I was speaking so much, I just got better and better at it through like brute force. But if you have any desire or interest at all for public speaking, I highly, highly, highly recommend Toastmasters. Okay. The next question. I have a big project to do and I'm having trouble breaking things down into meaningful steps. How can I make sure I don't miss any important deliverables in my project plan? Okay. So there's like a two-step strategy I recommend for you here. So first of all, what I typically see people, if you think about like the project management way to do projects, you're going in a very linear fashion and you're thinking about, okay, if this is the big thing, I'm going to kind of break it down into smaller steps. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Sometimes that can be a challenge because you sort of think, okay, this is the next step. And then you get to that next step and you're like, oh, actually, there's other things I need to do, or I should have done this other thing first. Or so sometimes just when you really think linearly, it can be constraining. So what I like to do, and I'm going back to a technique I just mentioned, I strongly recommend you do mind mapping of your project. So when you do mind mapping, it's a more creative process. And I love whiteboards. So there's software that you can use to do this, but I love whiteboards. I just like to go to the whiteboard and start writing out everything I can think of related to this project. And it may make no sense at first, and it doesn't need to, because mind mapping is really a kind of brainstorming exercise. But once you've gotten everything out of your mind, then you can start grouping activities together. And then you can start saying, oh, okay, I need to do this first, and then I need to do that, and then I need to do this. And then I have found that particularly for much larger projects, when people go through the mind mapping exercise, their list of tasks and deliverables is heavily enriched. There's a lot more to it. Sometimes they're like minor things, but sometimes those minor things, if you don't get those done, you can't do the big thing. And so I find that it's a much more fruitful exercise to get all of the different things that need to get done by using a mind mapping exercise. And then the second part of that strategy is to get input. So, you know, this is where your professional network can come in handy, but get other people to weigh in. So, you know, it depends on how you want to do it. You can get a couple people to actually mind map with you. That's one way to do it. You can share your mind map with people and say, okay, you know, here's the project I'm working on. Here are all the kind of big buckets and major tasks that I thought of. Am I missing anything? Or of course you can weigh in, you know, after you've kind of consolidated that into more of a project plan. But I definitely think that bringing in outside eyes from people that you trust, who maybe they're your advisors or they've done something similar, or maybe they're just like in a different area and you just want like a completely independent look. I definitely think that that is another way to really improve your overall project planning, is to get outside eyes. So step one is to try mind mapping to help kind of unlock this linear thinking about what the deliverables are, what needs to be done. Get a little more creative, brainstorm, dump everything out of your mind, and then get outside eyes to help you take a look at what you've got and provide you feedback and maybe come up with things you hadn't thought of. And then when you do that, you can go back to your normal, okay, we'll put this in a Gantt chart, right? After that, you can arrange those things and put them into a Gantt chart and go on your merry way. So I think that will help. Let me just take a drink real quick. Okay, so let's see. Sorry, my phone is ringing here and I'm not able to turn it off. Okay, there we go. It says, okay, I'm pitching to investors, which obviously everybody's talking about, and I'm worried that they won't understand my technology. Is there a way to simplify it so that they get it? Yes. So what I suggest you do is to think about your technology and then come up with something that is called a kind of like bridge. A kind of like bridge is basically an analogy of sorts. It's a way to help people understand, like lay people who maybe don't have any technology background. It's a way to help them understand your technology by relating it to something that's more common, it's more out in the real world. And so you say it's kind of like, so my technology is kind of like this other thing. And it is not meant to be an exact one-for-one match, because you can't, you won't be able to do that. It is simply meant to give people something they can hold on to so they can move forward in thinking about what you're talking about, and then maybe ask you some little bit more intelligent questions. And I'll give you an example. This just happened. So here in Knoxville last week was Startup Week. And so what that means is entrepreneurs from all over the area. We had several pitch contests. We had a bunch of investors come in looking at startups and things like that. And I went to the startup day, which was a pitch competition. And I had two of my coaching clients were pitching. And then there were a couple of other people that were pitching as well. And so one of the people that was pitching, not my client, because we the kind of like bridge. So one person who was pitching had this really cool technology. And it was essentially, they had a way of getting biological content into a system that they could inject it into your body. And then this biological content would find like damaged cells, like cancer cells. They would find the cancer cells in your body. They would attach to those cancer cells, and then they would deliver doses directly to the cancer cells. So that's kind of what that is what this technology was. So the person who just explained it is a PhD in biomedical engineering, and he explained it talking about, RNA, DNA, lipids, fats, all of these things, talked about all the different cells. He had pictures of all these like gnarly cells. And so he was using completely legitimate, but extremely technical language to the general public. So this was open to the public. So this is like mom and pops, everybody, you got people, the full like swath of society who could be interested in entrepreneurship just as a fun thing to do on a Tuesday night. We're there. And then it was being judged. So the winner would get $10,000. And so the judges, there were 3 judges, and then he gave his pitch. And I knew 2 of the judges. One judge I didn't know well, but one was an investor and one was as a restaurateur. So the investor goes, "Wow, you're really smart. I am going to have to get much more educated on your technology before I can ask you an intelligent question." And I thought, okay. And then the restaurateur, who's a friend of mine, he was like, "So do I understand that you're like kind of like a pill, and you carry the medicine to the body?" And the scientist was like, "No, we're not a pill. We're an injectable." And he was like, "But I mean, not that you're a pill, but like you carry medicines." And he was like, "No, that's not it." And so the restaurateur was like, "Okay." And then the other person, I forget, and I'm not sure she asked a question either. And so from my point of view, this was a completely failed pitch, because his audience couldn't even figure out enough about what he was doing to ask a question. And so that is not what you want to have happen. You're trying to get, confused people, they don't open up their checkbooks and give you money. So as I was watching his presentation, and I just thought, the restaurateur was like, he was trying so hard to come up with a kind of like bridge. He was like, "Are you kind of like a pill?" And I was like, "Nope." And he was like, "But because, to the scientists, it's like, clearly it's not a pill." And I was like, "Well, I wonder what would have happened if this same person said, we're kind of like SpaceX. You know how SpaceX makes rockets that go up into the atmosphere in this really complex environment, find exactly where the space station is, dock with the space station, and then allows people and goods and services to go from the rocket to the space station. We're kind of like that." except for we make transportation systems that go into the human body and find exactly where disease cells are, dock with those disease cells, and transfer life-saving drugs to those disease cells. I think if he had said something like that, now, not everybody understands how rockets and everything work, but most of the general population has seen enough sci-fi, has seen it to know, to understand, okay, rockets, they go up to space, they find the space stations or whatever, they attach, people go across the bridge, I mean, we've seen that. To at least get a concept. And then you could imagine that the judges could have been like, oh, wow, that's really cool. Like, what is your quote unquote spaceship made out of? And, obviously there's not teeny tiny little rockets going through your body. The person would say, oh yeah, we use biologically, compatible materials that are safe for the human body. Oh, wow. How big are these things? And you talk about how small they are. Oh, wow. Who else is doing that? You talk about that. So because a kind of like bridge like that, you're no longer just stuck trying to figure out between the lipids and the fats and all these other things that you don't know anything about. You're not trying to just figure out the basic idea. You have enough of a basic idea to then move you to the next level of questions. And so I recommend that really all of my entrepreneur clients are working on hard tech technologies. So we have, nobody understands anything they're doing. Well, we've got one person who does fuel cells technology, and his kind of like bridge is like, we're kind of like Jiffy Lube for fuel cells. So rather than, having to go through this long regeneration process, you can just go in and we'll fix your catalyst in 30 minutes, and then you keep driving. And so it's like, oh, here in the US, it's a place where you would take your car and they would change the oil and then you leave. So that kind of like bridge, even if you don't know anything about how fuel cells work, you can say, normally this takes, 5,000 hours. With our kind of like Jiffy Lube model, it takes 30 minutes. I'm like, oh, okay, I can kind of understand what's going on here. And then you can ask more intelligent questions. So I always recommend that you use a kind of like bridge. Now, they are hard to do for a couple of reasons. So you have to understand why you're doing this. You're not doing this to explain detailed technology precisely correctly. You are not doing that. You are doing this to help people take something that they don't understand at all, that is completely foreign in their day-to-day lives, something they've never seen before, and give them a little bit of a frame of reference so that they can move forward and, ask you to tell them more. And so it's hard for us because we have more expertise in these areas. We know more, we've forgotten more about this stuff than most people will ever know. And so sometimes, your first iteration in a kind of like bridge is still super, super technical, or you'll go the other extreme and you'll pick something that, is just like not even remotely close to your technology. So the way to kind of get around that, I think, is really to, well, first of all, take some practice. And second of all, is to get some people to help you. So you describe your technology maybe to people who are in a slightly different industry or slightly different technical background, and see if they can't help you identify, say, oh, when you've told me that, what comes to mind when you say that is this. What comes to mind when you say that is this. And then really keep moving and getting to people that are more and more and closer to your audience. So, if you're at a technical conference, you may not have to do that at all. If you're going to like an industry conference, you may have to do that somewhat. If you're going straight to investors, maybe you need a couple of iterations of that kind of like bridge to get to a place where people who maybe don't invest in your specific technology on a regular basis could still kind of grasp the key concepts. And again, you're not trying to explain all the details. What you're trying to do really is to just get past that first barrier of them just being like, I have no idea what you just said. You talk so above my head. I feel stupid even trying to ask you questions. You want to get past that, because if you can't get past that, you have no opportunity really to give more detail. You have no opportunity to win people over to invest in you or want to be your advisor or things like that. So it's called a It's called Kind of Like Bridge. And it's, trying to come up with a way to explain your technology in a way that has a broader frame of reference. So that's my recommendation there. Next question. I'm a new leader and my boss just gave me a lot of work to do on an interim basis while they hire a new person, and I'm having trouble doing it all myself. Should I ask my direct reports to help me? It doesn't seem fair to dump more work on them. Okay. So, it's a great question. It happens often. And the short answer is yes, I absolutely think it is fair and reasonable and quite frankly expected that you delegate some of that work to your people. And I like to think of delegation as kind of two main reasons to delegate. So one is to delegate really for development. So you've talked with somebody, they've talked about their career goals, they have aspirations to take on, either additional responsibility in your organization or something else, and you want to help them grow. And so learn by doing is really the best way to grow someone. And so you start delegating additional tasks or different tasks to them so that they can attempt to do the work, learn how to do it by doing it. So that's one way. That's one area where you delegate. The second area is actually what's going on here, which is there's just too much work to get done. Like there's too much work to get done, short-term or long-term, and you can't take it all on yourself. And so you have to delegate it to others. And one of the things that I think people need to understand is that if everybody in your team is always super satisfied with their work level because it's basically, easy for them, they don't have to really have any days where they're, working a little more, or they don't feel like they have to prioritize things because everything is just sort of like this normal steady state. If that's where you are with your organization, then you're actually not performing at the level that your organization is capable of, because there's something called optimal challenge. And I learned this at MIT, and we'll put a link to the article. So this is an MIT Management Review article. So I'll have to pull that out, and I will tell you now, I don't know if you can get it for free or not, but I'll just put the link in there. But there's something called the optimal challenge. And the optimal challenge for teams and for organizations is to say things are not so easy that everybody's just coasting. They're not so hard that everybody is constantly struggling and never feeling like they can ever be successful. So it's not those two extremes, but there's an optimal that is, a little bit above just kind of this steady state where everybody's nice, where people feel challenged, but mostly manageable. There can be little peaks here and there. And that is how organizations actually thrive. That's how people actually like to work. And there's been a lot of research about this. And this is how high-performing teams work, when there's this optimal challenge. And so do not hesitate to delegate work to folks to help to try to find that optimal challenge. And it's going to be a little bit of a trial and error. So you're going to have to be in communication with these people. So you're going to need to say, okay, we've just got this workload. I think this would be great. This task would be great for you to do. I think you would be really good at it. Are you willing to take this on to help us get this work done? And, if they say yes, great. If they say no, I have too much work to do already, then this is a mature and healthy conversation to have. And I would expect you as a leader to say, okay, well, let me help you prioritize what you have going on, and then be prepared to talk about, okay, well, what are their priorities? Are you actually able to, if somebody truly has a limit there for some reason, those are normal. Everybody has, limits at some point. If you need to get certain things done, can you help them prioritize those activities so that you get the optimal amount? But what I don't want you to do is just assume asking somebody to do an additional task is bad, because it's not bad. First of all, there's lots of people who actually want more. I mean, that's how people grow, right? You probably got into a leadership role because you grew, you know, you took on more. So you've got some probably high performers in your organization who honestly are probably just as at risk of leaving. There's just many people at risk of leaving for not having enough challenging work to do than to people who feel like they have too much work. So don't just default to, I can't ask them to help me with this workload increase because it's not fair and I'm afraid they'll leave. That is not a reasonable expectation. So let's start by, you know, identifying the tasks that need to be done, identifying the people you think are really best suited to help you with it, and then start the process of delegation and see where you can get with them, because you likely have some capacity where everything's going to be fine. People are going to be like, oh yeah, I can take this on. I've got to, you know, re-optimize a few other things that I do, but people are extremely resourceful and they will often do that. And you may have some people who are like, I can't take that on without reducing something else. Then you negotiate and you move forward that way, but you want to make sure that you take up that optimal challenge capacity. Otherwise, your organization is just going to be sort of steady state, status quo. And it's ultimately going to be seen at the higher level of the organization as just sort of like, you know, just like not especially forward looking, not especially progressive and high performing. And then that's going to hurt your overall team, but also your potential, your ability to grow. If you're not, you know, showing that you can get the most out of your team through, you know, providing delegation as one of these mechanisms. So I just want to throw that out there, suggest, yes, you absolutely should consider delegating, and you have lots of opportunities and options for how you go about doing that and how much of this workload you delegate. I think the other thing, just want to point out, like the last thing we want is for you to be completely stressed out and burned out. That's not going to help anybody. And now you're looking for a new role, or you're underperforming your objectives because you've taken on too much. So when you get a massive amount of, you know, a workload increase, thinking through the delegation process is absolutely appropriate, and the next step, and something that you can and should do. And it takes practice. I mean, you'll get better at it. You'll feel more comfortable. There will certainly be some people that groan, but overall, it's better for you personally and for your overall organization if you add to the workload of the people who are able to do it, and give them opportunities to grow while demonstrating that your organization can take on, you know, the challenges of the broader organization. Okay. So those were all of my questions. I don't see any questions in the chat. So with that, I am going to, let's see, I just want to make sure I got all this. Yep. With that, I am going to wrap things up. So what's coming up? So I'm doing it's actually going out as my leadership tips, but I'm going to enrich it for you all. So I'm doing the 5 transitions of leadership. So when you go from getting your PhD and becoming a technical expert, then maybe the first time you're a boss, then when you're the manager of managers, then when you like a VP or a functional leader level, and then when you get to the C-suite. So I'm going to be talking through each of those over the coming weeks, talking about the challenges that I had when I was in that, when I was in those phases of my own career, talk about what I'm seeing a lot of you all are being challenged with, and then give you some tips on what I see as really like maybe a couple of the really highest leverage things you can do to be successful in that transition. And then of course, if you want to keep going into higher and higher levels of leadership, ways that you can be successful at that. So that's something that's coming up, and I will, I'll make sure that you all see that. I'll be adding, so I'm doing it open to the public, so it's on my email list. I will give them resources that are just publicly available, but I will also be putting in the membership, making sure that you map to any of the actual membership resources that go along with some of those tips. So I'm looking forward to that. That's something that I've gotten a lot of questions about. How did you, what did you do when you were in this role? How did you get to this next level? And so it's something that comes up a lot. And then our next meeting is October 18th. So I will look forward to seeing you all then. Okay, take care.